Hi, welcome to the table. I'm Darian.
And I'm Sammy.
And we're here to dig deeper into the themes, stories, and cultures that are central to our church. Okay, so this week we are talking about grace. And we're going to be coming from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. And that says in the New Living Translation, so let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive his mercy, and we will find grace to help us when we need it most. So in talking about grace, it's a word I have a kind of a checkered past with, as I didn't even understand what it meant conceptually until I was probably in my 20s. Yeah. The church which you know this, but the church I went to growing up, didn't really talk about grace. And I remember the first person who talked to me about it, I looked at him and I said, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So grace is kind of complicated for me because I didn't understand it, and I didn't even want to understand it because I was so comfortable in legalistics. I was so comfortable in the rules and following them because that's what I thought church was. I thought church was behavioral. I thought God was rule-based. So so for me, I love talking about grace now because now that I've come to understand it and understand who God is as a gracious God, it has changed me. So for you, Sammy, where does your understanding of grace come? How do you understand grace? And how did you build that understanding?
I think coming back to church in my, I think I was 21 when I came back. No, I was 20. But when I first came back, I didn't really, think about grace. I was just I came back. My life, honestly, was, in the dumpster, straight out of the dumpster fire. Came to church. Uh-huh. And, he had surrounded me, with this pillow of, love and care that I was okay, cool. I'm chilling. Don't have to think about it, but whatever. And then I went to North Carolina when I was at Elevation, and I remember my first conversation with one of my roommates, and she was saying something, and I literally looked at her and I said, I was just at the club on New Year's. I was should I know that I want to be here. I know that I want to be deep in this, but my head has not been in it. Yeah. And she was like, oh, well, that's okay, whatever. And she said that, I was oh, she's not judging the crap out of me, because I thought that I was so nervous to go. I was oh, I gotta bring the right Bible. I have to have the right notebook. Oh my gosh, they're gonna tell me to flip to Psalms, and I'm not gonna be able to flip to that book fast enough. I was so nervous. Yeah, that so I wasn't gonna be able to do all this stuff. And the first conversation I had with her, she was like, oh, that's okay. Yeah. And so I think that that's something that the Lord has been teaching me over genuinely the past year. Yeah. And there's never been a step of it that has been oh yeah, God has amazing grace for me, and it is overwhelming, and it is loving, and boom. And it's easy that, oh, God's grace is great. No, it's I break down. Yeah. I have the worst freaking time of my life because I don't want to go to him and say, hey, Lord, I did this, and I'm really sorry, and this was really hard for me to come to you, but I'm coming to you, and I'm opening up my arms to you because I know that you're gonna give me this grace. We talked about this. I almost want him to be hey, you're in trouble. Dude, go to a corner.
It would be so much easier if he would just be angry. Yeah.
Right. But he's not. And so I think that that's something that he's been teaching me. I mean, even Seek Week, what was that, 2-3 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. I was breaking down, crying, and I was Lord, there's no way you can forgive me now. Genuinely, if you forgive me, you're crazy. Word. And on the first day, Pastor Paul had all of us write down prophetic words. And I walked up to the front, and me and Grace were talking about it too. And I was I don't think the Lord, I know he forgives me, but I need him to tell me deep down, hey, I forgive you. Yeah. And the first card I got, he was hey, I forgive you. I will always forgive you. Yep. I love you. Every single one of us mess up. Your pastor messes up. Mm-hmm. Your leader messes up. The person you most admire messes up. Yeah. It just is going to happen, and I forgive you. So yeah, that's been my journey with grace, and it's something that I have to almost break down every time, and hopefully one day it won't be like that anymore. But that's how it's been for me, walking in that.
Yeah. No, and that's so real. Like, it's so funny. I forgot we were just talking about this the other day. The idea of like, I wish God would just be angry sometimes, like, because that I know how to deal with. Like, if I break something and you yell at me, I know how to de-escalate. I know, but I don't know how to come back at like, okay. I'm like,
what do you mean okay?
Like, it feels like a full stop of like
like I want to throw up thinking
like are you sure? Like, is it actually, it makes me think of this morning. I was talking to George about this earlier. My cat like threw up and it was horrible. It was the worst. And I like, a part of me was like, I wanted to be mad at him, but I was like, he's just a cat. Like, even if I am mad at him, it doesn't matter. Like, he's still just a cat. Like, and he's my cat. And like, he didn't mean to do that, you know, like, and so I think like when it comes to God, like sometimes it does feel like it'd be easier for him to just be mad.
Right.
But yeah, like I think that process that even that you're talking about is so powerful between the way I say it is like, there's a big difference between acknowledging and accepting. Yeah. Because it is one thing to acknowledge grace and to say like, yeah, God's great. Like Hebrews 4:16, he's gracious. He's a gracious God and he's going to give it. And it's easy to talk about grace as a concept. Yeah. But then actually like accepting it in your life is a much harder, accepting and applying. Yeah. Like living it out. So for you, how have you found yourself like bridging those gaps? Like that gap between, okay, I know what grace is and now I have to apply it. Like how do you merge those?
I mean, there's, I think the more that I've like gotten into my word and the more that like I learn about Jesus, I mean, what was it? During the Last Supper, like Jesus was about to get crucified. He knew it. He knew that he was going to die. He knew that he was going to do all this for us. And he's sitting down at the table. And he's like, hey, by the way, what are you guys? You're going to betray me tonight. But where are they? At the table with him. Yeah. He's literally like, yeah, anyways, so we're breaking bread, but one of y'all is going to betray me. Who y'all think it is? You know, like, and they're sitting at dinner with him. Like, and you know, every time I read this story, like, I think that this is the most brought up story for me in the past year. Like, it has been, like, shaping me to the core because you just see how, like, much Jesus, like, does. I mean, even, like, after that, so he's like, okay, Judas, you know, like, period, you're betraying me. And then, you know, Peter comes up to him and he's like, I'd do anything for you. And he's like, anyways, I know what it's about to go down. Like, just wait, you're going to deny me 3 times. Yeah. And he's still walking to the cross, you know, like he's still doing all this stuff. Like he's still loving him. He's still like, he comes back and he's like, Peter, I love you, you know? And so I think I just like continuously I'm in my word and I'm like, Jesus did this for these people who literally like were sitting across from him. Yeah. Who literally helped get him to the cross. Like, you know, like didn't in a way defend him. And he was still like, I love you so much. Yeah. So I think it's something that like I have to daily remind myself. And I said this in the last podcast, I believe, but it, like he says it in like what, Matthew, Luke, there's another one where he's like, if you choose to follow me, pick up your cross daily. Let's go. Yeah. You have to pick up your cross daily. You have to choose daily. Like, this is what we're doing. This is what like the Lord has taught me. I have read this consecutively in like 4 different places. Like people like me and you have these conversations all the time. Like it is something that I have to like be open about. Yeah. And I like, you have to lean on your people. Like if me and you hadn't had this conversation, like what, 2 weeks ago where I was like, hey dude, I've been mad at God for like 7 months and I'm ready to like, I'm ready to say that now. Yeah. And like, I just got off my fast, like what, yesterday. And I feel the weight like lifted off of me because what I talked to my friends, I sought godly counsel. I was in my word. I made the space to be with him and just say like, hey, I'm mad at you. Like, can we talk about this? Like, I know you forgive me, but let's talk. Yeah. Like, let's have a conversation. Let me know you. Good. Let me build this relationship with you. Yeah. So I think that's what I do. Like, what do you think are things that help you and like you walk through?
Yeah. I think for me, like bridging that gap has come very naturally, just because like, okay, you know this, everybody in this room knows this, but I think last year or the year before was diagnosed with clinical depression. So something I've like felt my whole life, that and severe anxiety. So I've felt these things my whole life, this like tug of like, I'm in church, so like I want, you know, I have this faith that like I can be healed, but also like I do carry this weight of mental illness, and like it is very real for me. And so for me, walking in grace comes very easy, only because it's my only, it feels like my only choice, really.
Yeah.
Like it's that or I don't at all. And so I like the moment I started to understand God's grace truly, it was like a light switch came on. It was like I didn't even know how dark the room was.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there was light, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
there is a better way. Like there are other paths. I thought I was just here, and now I'm being given this choice of here. And so yeah, so for me it doesn't even feel like a choice anymore. I mean, I've been in church now like I don't know, like 15 years or something, some ridiculous number that makes me feel really old.
Yeah.
And like I saw a gray hair today. But but at the same time, like it has given me a lot of time to practice walking in grace, and not just like, because there is an important part of like every day being like, all right, me and you got this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I feel like after enough time of doing that, it stops having to become such a conscious choice, and more so is just, this is how life is.
Yeah.
And I don't actually even know a different way. And I refuse to know a different way, because I found that of all the ways I've tried, this one is the best way for me. It's the best way for you in my life. It's the best way for everyone around me at all times if I'm living this way. Because otherwise, like, I am not who you know now. Like, I am now Darian in grace. Like, this person who I am is within that grace. And so, yeah, so bridging that gap, I don't remember like how that, I think that process was very painful at first, just because it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard comment, because I didn't know how to accept grace in place of punishment for sin. But yeah, now that I have, and like over the course of 15 years or whatever, have, you know, come to figure it out, it has become life. And so, yeah, so, but it is a process, I think, of just like that daily choice. This is how I'm going to live, because it is the best way to live. So, so understanding God's grace is obviously step one. And now let's talk a little bit about grace for people, because like, now that we know grace, there is a grace we have to extend. And so what to you does that look like to extend that grace, or like to not extend that grace? Like, what does that life kind of look like?
I know that I personally have a lot of like friends on both sides. Like I have a lot of friends that believe in Jesus. I have a lot of friends that don't. And a lot of the conversations that I've had with friends that don't, like I said about 3 years ago, I think is when I first started coming back to church. And I moved in with these girls that I literally had just met that year. Love them. But I moved in with them, and I had my friend Sarissa come over to the house, and, you know, I was showing her around, and I was like, guys, look, I'm in a house. I'm so happy. Like, I'm going back to school. You know, I was doing all these things. And the year before, it was really hard. And they were like, you know, I've met a lot of people who claim to be Christian, and I met a lot of people who know Jesus, but Jesus looks so good on you. And when they said that to me, I was like, okay, like, it felt great, because I was like, come on, Jesus looks good on me, period. But like, it's been a lot of evaluating that I've been doing in this time of like, what does that even mean? Like, because you'd hope like someone is like repping Jesus, like that they're loving like Jesus, like that they're actively making like an effort to make others feel accepted, to extend grace. So like the way that I think of it in extending grace is like thinking of both sides. Like if we are in an argument and we're mad at each other, there's something that you're thinking that I'm not thinking. There's something that you're going through that I don't know. And there's something that I might be going through that you don't know. And you're angry and you're frustrated. But once you sit down and you have this conversation of like, okay, we're both going through something. Okay, like, you know, this is not like as deep as we're making it. And so I think about that, and I think, why do these people get so angry? And I think that they just don't like fully allow the grace into their heart. Like they haven't accepted the grace of Jesus into their heart to extend it to others. So that it creates this like, what's the word? Stigmatism. That's not the word I'm thinking of. What's the word?
A stigma?
Stigma. It creates a stigma against like Christians and like following Jesus and what that's like. And so it's a bummer. And it's not fun, but like truly like extending grace is like seeing what the other person is going through and saying, oh, but how would Jesus react in this moment? Mm-hmm. How would God react in this moment? Like, what could I do to make this a better situation?
Yeah. No, that's so good.
Yeah. That's how I personally think of it. Mm-hmm. I like know that we've talked about it a little bit, but what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think like whenever you say that of like, well, how would Jesus respond to this? I think it's fun to ask those questions.
WWJD.
Exactly. But like at the same time, we know the answer because we got to see Jesus do it. Like we got to see him model the behavior, which was he sat at the table and he still like he knew what was coming. He knew the end and still sat at the table. Like that scripture that everybody quotes it for communion is the first line is on the night that Jesus was betrayed. And so like that was the opening line to this story. On the night he was betrayed, he chose to sit and be with them, the people who would inevitably betray him. And so like I love asking those questions, but also it's never open-ended. No. The answer is there. Yeah. The answer is he would still be with them. Like he would still choose people. Yeah. And so extending that grace to me is, like you said, like it's just being there for them. It's just realizing like right now in their life, maybe I am the cat that is causing a racket, you know?
I knocked down the mirror.
Maybe they're being the cat in my life, you know? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, they're just a person. Like, and it's not that deep because like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, whatever you say, it is surely coming from somewhere, but it is not coming from a lack of love for me. Right. And like, even if it is, my love's not going to change. Right. And that is the grace that I'm going to extend to you is like, even if you don't want it, I'm going to love you. Yes. And you're going to have to deal with it. Like I am going to be around until forever. Like you're not going to get rid of me because of what what you say, hurtful things, you do something dumb. We don't talk for whatever months at a time. Like I'm chilling. You're not getting rid of me because because my love isn't going to change based on behavior. Yeah. Because like that is the model. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you really think about it, like I personally say this all the time, but like the only perfect person was Jesus himself. Yeah. Period. Yeah. So like, I like, even when you walk into church, you know, like, once again, all of my friends, they always say, oh, like, I'm going to burn when I go, you know, and it's like, oh, jokes, okay, you're going to burn, you know, like, or, oh, everybody's going to judge me. No. Yeah. Not one person that has walked in this building is perfect. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did y'all see like Jesus himself full form walk in the building?
Because if not,
we're chilling. We're all sinners. Yeah. Like I don't know what to tell you. I don't know.
And that takes us right back to the scripture, Hebrews 4:16. Like he wouldn't have to be a gracious God with like grace waiting at his throne. Yeah. If we didn't all need it, he wouldn't be. You know, it's not. Come boldly before the throne of a really mean God, like, or a really scary God. Yeah. It is come before your gracious God, and there will be grace waiting for you. Mm-hmm. And so, because that's who he is, it literally, to me, it's like ground zero. It is the first step because like every other thing that you get from God, forgiveness, healing, salvation, all of it comes from the knowledge that he has grace for you. Yeah. And without the knowledge that like he has grace for you, and because, okay, so the definition of grace for me has always been, someone was comparing mercy and grace, and they said mercy is getting or not getting what you do deserve, and grace is getting what you don't deserve. Yeah. And so that's always been my understanding. So it's this place of like, I don't deserve this. I did not deserve salvation. I did not deserve the perfect man, Jesus, to be born, die, resurrect. I didn't deserve any of that. Yeah. I have literally done nothing to earn it, could do nothing to earn it, not that good. Yeah. And yet, it's mine. Yeah. And yet, like, I can't heal myself, and yet healing is mine. And, you know, so it's over and over again. So, yeah, I think that it's like ground zero for me, and being able to extend that grace to others is a gift. And so I think like kind of even hitting on the like the lack of grace there, like, and what happens when you don't extend grace, I think it, to me at least, it is a good measuring stick of how you're understanding grace in your life. If you're able to extend it to others. If you're having a hard time being gracious with others, you might be having a hard time accepting grace for yourself. You might be in a deficiency because if you can't pour out of something, you know, if you can't pour out love, then you might be missing love. If you can't pour out, so I think when it comes to grace, like if you're having a hard time extending grace, like maybe look inside and say like, okay, well, what's my perception of God's grace? So, like he's invited us. Hebrews 4:16. He invited us to come boldly before his throne, and there is grace waiting for us. So, and what a cool thing that is.
I know. He's such a cool God. I like
so cool.
He's so cool for that. Cause like you said, we don't deserve it. We don't do anything.
Unmerited,
Yeah. And I think a little bit of encouragement, I would say, is like she said, if you are feeling like you have this like overwhelming anger in you, or you like can't forgive that person, like just like take a step back, bro. Like take a little fast, take a little take time during your lunch break, open your freaking Bible, like spend time with him, and I like guarantee you like the Lord will give that to you. So that's period.
That's all I got.
And that's all I'm gonna say. Period.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week at the table.